Hello and welcome to the Soul-Filled Mama Masterclass. My name is Cathy Acre, and I'm doing this because I'm committed in helping you manifest an abundant and purposeful life that supports your well-being, your child's well-being, and that of those around you. Super thrilled to present to you Elena Tonetti. This amazing woman has been inspiring people all over the world to bring consciousness into making and raising children. She was one of the organizers of the birth camps at the Black Sea in Russia, where women gave birth in shallow lagoons in the presence of wild dolphins. Wow, that's unbelievable. Elena is the creator of the revolutionary documentary Birth as We Know It. And she's a spiritual midwife to thousands of people, perfecting her birth into being method, training other facilitators who are now using her method in 28 countries in all major languages. Elena is featured in the recently released unsponsored book Force, Such as the World Had Never Known, Women Creating Change, as one of the 30 most influential grassroots women in the world. She recently received the Legendary Leader Award and was a featured keynote speaker at countless conferences. Her website is birthintobeing.com. Elena, welcome. It's an honor to have you today with us.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
I would really love to know, Elena, if you can talk to us a little bit about what is Birth into Being and this experience with the dolphins, with women. If you can tell us just a little bit about your work.
Well, when I was born in the 50s in Siberia, I went through incredible traumatic experience of just being born. And we didn't even know how problematic and barbaric it was until we started looking into possibilities, what's actually available to women anatomically, emotionally, spiritually. And the way I was born left me kind of feeling very contracted and very limited in my creativity, in my sexuality, in the way I could relate to the world, to myself, to other people. And at some point when I realized the impact that my making has on the way I live, which was in 1982, I decided to dedicate my time, energy, life, basically, to helping other women to have different experience of being born and giving birth, and even more so, maybe figuring out how to undo the trauma they received when they were born, because it became very clear that a woman gives birth the way she was born. That's just the mechanism of our body. The woman learns about giving birth while being born. I repeated itself to really help you grasp the significance of that statement. So if we are born into suffering, into the excruciating pain, we are programmed to give birth in suffering. The good news is that that chain can be broken. We can actually use our free will and claim our birthright to give birth like any other wild female animal can do in the wild. Just becoming really focused on what we're doing, get really quiet inside, and let our body be flooded with oxytocin, and open our body and open our tissues and let the baby out. Like any cat can do that. And our anatomy absolutely allows us to have that kind of an experience. And my film, about which I will talk later, shows that. I show 11 ecstatic, orgasmic births in my film. But to rewind back to the early 80s, I got involved with this conscious movement of birthing in dignity, in grace for women. And it climaxed in organizing birth camps at the Black Sea, where a few women, well, hundreds of them, gave birth in shallow lagoons, and wild dolphins were coming to support us and witness and assist. It was very beautiful. At this point, I did not find another place where that could be happening for a number of different reasons. But I want to go back to something I find very, very important to talk about the postpartum period.
Mm-hmm.
You see, most of the birth preparation classes are so focused on the pregnancy, sometimes even conception, if they start from the preconception time and pregnant, and birth itself, that the incredible complexity that unfolds after giving birth, for a woman to try to figure out how to be a mother, how to be herself, how to be a woman, how to actually live from that moment when nothing that she knew about herself is actually applicable, because she went through this huge dramatic transition from maidenhood into motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And that complex transition has a lot to do with a sense of self, with identity. Because before having a child, a woman just grows up and, she was a girl, then she became sexual, the whole world opened. And depending on how much time she had before the baby came, whether she had time to actually figure out who she is or not, that will affect the way she is kind of surfing that wave and stepping into motherhood. Because traditionally, we don't really have a culture of supporting women in maintaining their identity with that.
Mm-hmm.
A woman was a girl and then she's a mother. And in traditional, attitude to women. And when she's the mother, she has a certain number of responsibilities and chores to do, and what she must oblige and perform in the household, right? So if she did not have that moment of really settling in her strength, in her power, in her creativity and sexuality, there is great chance that she will go through a severe loss of identity.
Mm-hmm.
Because all her hormones would be in complete disarray after giving birth, and sleepless nights add to that the new experience of having to be responsible for this helpless little creature, breastfeeding, pumping milk, becoming that milk factory, if you wish, having all your hormonal landscape geared towards producing milk now instead of producing sex hormones or producing any kind of other types of hormones. Basically a woman goes into fight or flight mode if she is not supported enough, if she was not established as a human being enough. And unfortunately, that is the fate of the great majority of women on this earth, because we don't have the tradition that honors women. Most of the traditions around the world were created by men for men. Women were kind of tugging along and being in a subservient role. Traditionally, for thousands of years, women did not have the right to be like people, be fully actualized in their creativity and freedom of sexuality. Women mostly did not have the right to love who they want to love. It's very recent only. It's only very recent in our history that women have the right to have babies with whom they want to have babies and not being traded or sold into marriages.
Mm-hmm.
It's in our DNA. It's in our foremothers' dowry to us. Our mothers, our grandmothers got handed down that volume of anxiety around sexuality, anxiety about taboos, social, cultural, religious taboos on self-expression. So we're basically the first generation of women that has that level of freedom, that level of access to information, technology to help us learn and grow and express and be creative, right? So we are inventing new traditions, new history. We're making it right now. You and I are making history right now by giving ourselves permission to speak freely, to explore, to learn, to have freedom of choices.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very unknown culturally and socially, economically, very unknown experience for our species.
Yes.
So it's no wonder that we stumble, make mistakes, don't really have that many teachers to ask them questions, because there are a lot of teachers, but most of them are male. And male, just by definition, cannot really understand how the female body and hormonal complexity works. They don't have that complexity.
Mm-hmm.
Our hormonal library is supposed to handle creation of the whole new human being. There is a magic trick for you, creating from nothing, basically something so magnificent and powerful as a new human being. And we're doing it. Our bodies are capable of that. And that's thanks to that very, very unimaginably for our human brain complexity of the anatomical, hormonal, emotional supply that we're capable of. So with that complexity and in the vacuum of established role models and established traditions of honoring that magic power and that amazing complexity that we women are, with history of disrespect of women, we're really running up against something tangibly slow and difficult. Every woman is facing this lonely journey of figuring out who she is, what she can, what she is going to allow herself to become. You know what I mean? Our capacity is one thing, whether we are able to start wanting to explore the full range of our capacity. It's the whole other game.
Mm-hmm.
and whether we actually will do something about it and embark on this journey. It's a whole other level of relationship with the world and with self. And whether we accomplish something in that journey, it's the whole other level. It spirals. Every person, I perceive every person as a vortex. It's the spiraling dance of energies, of all flavors and colors, and how many of them we would allow ourselves to explore and experience and activate. It's absolutely up to us. And sometimes it's very scary to step into that level of uncertainty and bravery to really go for it and become the pioneer in your family. Maybe you are going to be the first woman in your family that dares to break out of the traditional role of, woman belongs in the kitchen and in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And while you do belong in the kitchen, you want to create the food that you feed your family, your beloved, your children, and you do want to belong in the bedroom. You are a deeply, deeply sexual being. In fact, sexual energy is the most amazing, delicious, sweet, and powerful energy that charges our life force, our desire to be creative and explore and be powerful. So we do want to belong in the kitchen and in the bedroom, but we are also so much more. And this is what is very difficult to understand if we did not establish that ground rule of the game. I am a woman, and I am proud of it because I am the most powerful, the most brilliant, the most beautiful woman I can possibly be. And if that is not established, then our postpartum period falls on utter confusion and what is being called postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm.
And in my estimation, postpartum depression really hits, I don't know, to different degree, about 98% of women after birth.
Wow. That's a big number.
As I said, to different degree. Some women have better coping strategies and better support system, but in my estimation, about half of the women go into severe postpartum depression. Again, define severe. There are different um, lines that we can draw. And the other half is within the coping capacity. But this is not right. Whatever degree is being experienced, it comes with the complexity of finding the new world order after the baby comes.
Yes.
Because normally a woman is not interested in sex for quite a while, and that generates a lot of tension between her and her husband, because we don't have the education that will explain to men in scientific, calm terms that a woman is not going to be sexual for a while. They want that maiden back in the bedroom. They want the chick they fell in love with right away. And that's not going to happen. I think maybe there is a fraction of percent of women that are able to go back into being sexually active the way it was, but that usually falls on the percentage of women that were very endowed in their sex life, were very confident, and that were very established sexual relationship with their husbands on the level that can sustain the intensity of childbirth. very few women are on that level sexually before they have their first child. Mostly it's just, hormones, young desires, and lust that drives us to choose our sexual partners, or not even choose them. We always um, look for love. Okay, I should take this back. Not always. The great majority of women is looking for love in all the wrong places.
Mm-hmm.
And the baby might come into that all the wrong place. Very few women are fortunate enough to fall in love with, with the right man from the start, and stay with that man throughout all the trials and tribulations of parenting. It's the drama of it is that every woman thinks that something's wrong with her, because there was no conversation, because there was no information about how it's going to change her sexual appetites after that, and how it's going to affect her relationship with her husband after that. And because of this complexity, every woman who is struggling with it might feel like she's alone in it and doesn't have anybody to ask questions or figure out how to fix it, in the overall absence of appropriate amount of sleep and being on baby brain. When you can't really think clearly, it just goes moment to moment, day by day, and there can be a feeling that, oh, I will rest and it will come back. The problem is that by the time you rest enough and it might come back, the ill dynamic with the husband might be gone too far.
The disconnection is already, like, you've
Right.
already disconnected by the
right. His sexual needs were not altered by childbirth. You see, he doesn't understand what's going on. Why is he suddenly feeling so left out? And he feels undesired, and that might create a lot of resentment and behaviors that are not supportive of bouncing right back as soon as woman is available. She might be holding a lot of hurt by then.
Yeah.
This is more common than not. And when I'm describing it, usually women look at me and it's like, how do you know?
Yeah.
Well, just because I'm exposed to thousands of women who are telling the same story, this is how I know.
You're speaking the unspoken story we all have inside of us.
Exactly. Because nobody told us that, oh, we need to talk about it during pregnancy, before the birth, because after the baby comes, it's too late. On that baby brain, you cannot put it in nonviolent terms of like, leave me alone.
Elena, this things to my soul so much, and it's bubbling in the surface, this idea that women have been so repressed and for so long, that we live in this patriarchal order, and that we are rising and we are getting into more awareness, and this is like the generation that is starting this new world order, as you referred to it earlier. And it is actually our greatest responsibility as women, I see, and as creators of life and creators and manifestors, how we really need to take charge of this and really name it and really go within. Because my next question would be, what happens if we don't really address this? What happens if we just take the depression and the postpartum period and all of this and we just put it under the rug?
Well, what happens is that resentment in the family escalates to the point that the baby that might be beautifully born due to all the birth preparation, if we manage to prepare ourselves and have this gorgeous birth, and then the baby is being raised in the atmosphere of constant conflict and bickering and fighting, and the parents that are not meeting each other's needs, because the general rule of that dynamic is that if I'm not having any sex, I'm not gonna help you do dishes or take the garbage out, and she's going, okay, if you're not doing dishes, you're
But
not
I'm not having sex.
yeah. So telling the husband that doing dishes is the new foreplay.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And they would say, why should I help? I'm being ignored. It's so the baby then is being torn between those two adults that's supposed to love each other, supposed to love that baby, supposed to help that baby grow and learn, and everything gets kind of destroyed by the atmosphere of hostility and conflict in the household. Mm-hmm. Because women now know that they can say no. It's a big step, compared to our great grandmothers and grandmother, maybe even mothers, who did not dare to say no, who were basically raped for the rest of their life by their husbands that did not know how much pain they're in during sex. Yeah. Because they're not, they don't want it. If you don't want it, it's going to hurt. And
we're still bearing, we're still holding on to those kinds of violence from our ancestors, from our ancient women that lived this. It's like we still have it, even though we're not there anymore, or like we're changing it, but it's still like the collective feminine energy is still in that wound.
Exactly. And when sex starts associating with pain instead of pleasure, the peaceful atmosphere in the household goes out the window. Mm-hmm. Then both adults in the household become kind of, they run their energy on autopilot, doing what they're supposed to do, joyless, just not very creative way. We cannot step into our beautiful future being unhappy.
Yeah.
It is deeply connected with what happens at home, what happens in the bedroom. Our quality of civilization in general depends on that most sensitive, tender, primal period during which our nervous system unfolds and learns, during which the basic settings of our modus operandi are being established. And when generation after generation grows up in conflict and listening to parents fighting, even, sometimes physically fighting, that's just not a good start. Mm-hmm. If we are to change the quality of life on this planet, we need to start with the way we make babies. So this is why basically I came up with what I call the birth into being method. It consists of 40 very different processes and exercises that are designed to address our life from 40 different angles. Between 40 of them, I leave very few rocks unturned. It's kind of very comprehensive program, because I realized that there is no magic bullet, just something one, and all problems are taken care of. You need to really address the whole system from all the different dimensions. And it's very important to address it through the slightly altered state of mind, which is kind of beyond the cognitive function. So the way I work with it is, first we need to put the participant or a group or the client into that slightly altered state due to different breathing techniques and movement techniques. There is absolutely no chemicals involved or drugs. It's just using the intention and the abilities of our creative powers to really go into that space beyond that victim mentality story, and in that space, prehistorical space in our psyche, find the switch and flip it on. Because if you just work on the complexity of our issues from the cognitive point with your cortex, trying to think about it or talk about it, you see the cortex developed much later in life. Most of our problems originate in the precognitive time of gestation and birth, when cortex was not developed yet. Mm-hmm. So it's in our cells, it's in our cellular memory, it's in our limbic memory. Yeah. Limbic is the part of the brain that is responsible for our emotions. You see, memory has emotional nature. So in order for us to actually create that permanent, lasting shift in the way we run our energy, we need to go into the limbic memory, not in the cortex memory. This is the key to the effectiveness of the program that I offer. If you find another healing modality that works with alignment between limbic, reptilian, and cortex, this is what you want. When a healing modality addresses the emotional, mental, and physical aspect of your beingness at the same time with the same intensity, this is what does it for us. We need to create a new reference point in our nervous system, how to operate in alignment between all of the aspects of our identity, who we are as a spirit, as a soul, as the body, and then some. So for that, we need to actually have a kinesthetic, experiential reference point, what it feels like to be completely within that cocoon of the vortex that we are. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
The full range of the human experience. It's so beautiful. I would love to keep talking to you, Elena. This is so interesting. It sings to my soul. And I do know that we're running a little bit out of time. So would you like to speak to our soul-filled mamas about, I understand you have an offer for them, something that they can look into more about your work.
Yes, I made a DVD, and full DVD is almost 4 hours. But I created also, within that DVD, there is a 75-minute feature film that shows ecstatic birth, and I speak about what it takes to have that kind of experience. In the feature film, I show what it looks like, and in director's commentary, I explain what needs to be done for that. But my free gift is 25 minutes of the compilation of video, kind of a short version of that 75-minute documentary, where you can see creme de la creme of the episodes from the movie. So you're welcome to enjoy, watch it many times. It has an incredibly healing transmission to just watch those beautiful images, and it just goes straight deep into your soul when you see this incredible beauty on the screen.
Yes, I will never forget that image of one of the images of your video where a woman is giving birth, like in this shallow lagoon that you speak of. It's just so magical, so beautiful. So by all means, take Elena's free gift. It's so beautiful. You will be, as you say, Elena, there will be like some healing through watching the film. So thank you so much for that offer. Thank you so much for the conversation. It has been so eye-opening, and I'm sure mommies will have a great time in really introspecting all of this that you just spoke about.
Yes, and on my website there are actually hours of interviews. If you want to know more, birthintobeing.com, you can listen to other topics I cover in those interviews.
Beautiful. And you will have the link to Elena's website and to the free gift as well in your email. And I thank you so much, Elena. Thank you, mommies, for listening and tuning in today. And I would really love to hear from you. What did you learn from today's masterclass? What opened up for you? What are your takeaways? If you can reply to this email and let me know. And I will see you tomorrow. Again, Elena, thank you so much. It was a blessing to have you today.
It was my pleasure.
Okay, goodbye. Mwah.
Goodbye.